Dirty little liars like you make me sick. You people steal everything. Flight attendant Brenda Matthews snatched the boarding pass from 8-year-old Amara Johnson's trembling hands. She held it high, making sure everyone could see, then slowly tore it into tiny pieces. The fragments fluttered down like snow. Fake tickets, fake tears, fake everything. Brenda's voice carried across the gate. And where's your so-called father? Probably ran off like they all do. Doctor. Kendrick Johnson froze at the check-in counter 20 feet away. His daughter's tears hit him like bullets. Security, we have scammers here. 12 phones rose in unison. The live stream counter exploded. American Airlines Flight 447. Departure 28 minutes. One assumption, one mistake. One father who owned 12% of the airline watched his child get destroyed. Have you ever watched power destroy innocence, not knowing that innocence held the real power all along? Flight departure. 26 minutes remaining. The digital countdown on gate B7's monitor pulsed red. Dr. Kendrick Johnson dropped his medical equipment bag and sprinted toward his daughter, his sneakers squeaking against polished terminal floors. Amara. His voice cracked across the gate area. Brenda Matthews spun around, her lips curling into a smirk. Oh, look who finally showed up. Let me guess, another fake ticket. Kendrick reached his daughter and knelt beside her, gathering the torn boarding pass pieces. His hands shook as he tried to fit them together like a jigsaw puzzle. Sweetheart, are you okay? Daddy, she said, we're liars. Amara's voice was barely a whisper. Jenny Rodriguez, passenger in seat 12C, had been recording since the first torn piece hit the floor. Her Instagram live stream showed 3,247 views and climbing. Comments flooded the screen faster than she could read them. This is disgusting. Someone help that baby. Where's the manager? I'm calling American Airlines. Flight departure. 4 minutes remaining. Gate agent Patricia Wilson emerged from behind her counter, clipboard in hand. Her eyes swept over Kendrick's faded jeans and plain gray polo shirt. No designer labels, no expensive watch, no obvious signs of wealth. Sir, I'm going to need to see identification and proof of purchase for both tickets. Kendrick stood slowly, his jaw tightening. Of course. He pulled out his wallet, a simple black leather fold, nothing fancy. His driver's license showed the same last name as the tickets. Patricia examined the documents with theatrical precision, holding them up to the light as if checking for watermarks. These could be forged. Happens all the time with. She paused, her eyes flicking between father and daughter. With certain types of passengers, the words hung in the air like poison gas. Certain types. Kendrick's voice remained calm, but his knuckles whitened around Amara's hand. Flight departure. 22 minutes remaining. Brenda stepped closer, emboldened by Patricia's support. Look, we've seen this scam before. Single father, sick kid, first-class tickets. They clearly can't afford. It's textbook fraud. My daughter has sickle cell anemia, Kendrick said quietly. We're flying to Atlanta Children's Hospital for treatment. A convenient excuse. Brenda's eyes narrowed. Where's the paperwork? Real patients have real documentation. Amara tugged on her father's shirt. Daddy, my chest hurts. Kendrick immediately dropped to her level, checking her breathing. Her lips had a slight blue tinge, the beginning of a crisis. His medical training kicked in as he reached for her emergency inhaler. She needs to sit down now. She needs to leave. Brenda blocked the boarding gate with her body. Both of you. Flight departure. 20 minutes remaining. The crowd was growing. Passengers from nearby gates had wandered over, drawn by the commotion. Jenny's live stream had reached 8,500 viewers. Someone had started the hashtag Hashemines against discrimination. This is 2025, not 1,955, shouted an elderly white woman from the crowd. Just let them on the plane, added a businessman in an expensive suit. But Patricia and Brenda stood their ground. They'd seen their type before, trying to game the system with sob stories and fake emergencies. Security officer James Park arrived, his radio crackling with static. What seems to be the problem here? Fraudulent tickets, Patricia announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Father-daughter team classic con. Officer Park looked down at Amara, who was now sitting on the floor, struggling to breathe properly. Something didn't feel right about this situation, but airline personnel had authority in these matters. Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me while we sort this out. Flight departure, 18 minutes remaining. Kendrick's phone buzzed, a text from his assistant. Board meeting moved to 3:00 p.m. Emergency vote on quarterly projections. He deleted it without responding. Right now, nothing mattered except his daughter. Please, he said to Officer Park. Look at her. She's having a medical episode. The stress is triggering her condition. Amara's breathing was becoming more labored. Her sickle cell disease meant that stress, dehydration, or altitude changes could trigger a painful crisis. The humiliation and anxiety were doing exactly what Kendrick had feared. Daddy, she whispered. I'm here, princess. Just breathe with me. But Brenda wasn't finished. Oh, how touching. The acting lessons really paid off, didn't they? Flight departure. 16 minutes remaining. Jenny's live stream exploded. The viewer count hit 12,000. Screenshots were being shared across Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok faster than the platforms could track them. Someone had pulled up American Airlines customer service number and was posting it in the comments. Others were tagging news outlets and civil rights organizations. The hashtag #hashground, the plane started trending. Patricia noticed the crowd's growing hostility and doubled down. People, please return to your gates. This is a routine security matter. Routine? A young black woman pushed forward. Y'all would never treat a white family like this. This isn't about race. Brenda snapped. This is about fraud prevention. Flight departure. 4 minutes remaining. Kendrick carefully helped Amara to her feet. In her small hand, she clutched something that caught the light. A medical alert bracelet with custom engraving. Most people wouldn't think to look closely at a child's medical jewelry. Daddy, can I call Grandma Rose? Amara's voice was weak but determined. Not right now, sweetheart. But Amara was already reaching into her small purple backpack, pulling out her phone. It wasn't a cheap device. It was the latest iPhone with a custom case that looked expensive up close. She scrolled through her contacts with the practiced ease of a child who'd grown up with technology. Her finger paused over one entry. Emergency, Dad's office. Flight departure. 2 minutes remaining. The boarding announcement echoed through the gate area. American Airlines, Flight 447 to Atlanta. We will begin boarding first-class passengers in 10 minutes. All first-class passengers except 2. Kendrick looked at his daughter, then at the crowd of strangers who had become unwitting witnesses to their humiliation. Jenny's live stream was now at 15,000 viewers and climbing. Amara, he said quietly. Remember what I taught you about quiet strength? She nodded, her small hand steady as she typed a single text message. Code read, Gate B7, need help. The message went to a contact simply labeled Board Emergency Line. Flight departure 10 minutes remaining. Chief Flight Attendant Carol Martinez clicked across the gate area in her polished heels, her supervisor badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She'd been called from the VIP lounge, where she'd been handling a delayed senator's connecting flight. What's the situation here? Her voice carried the authority of 15 years managing difficult passengers. Brenda straightened her uniform. Fraudulent first-class tickets, ma'am. Father and daughter claiming medical emergency. I stopped them before they could board. Carol's eyes scanned the scene. The torn boarding pass pieces scattered across the floor, Amara's labored breathing, Kendrick's careful composure, and Jenny's phone pointed at everything. How long has this been going on? About 10 minutes. Patricia answered, her voice defensive. We followed protocol. Carol knelt beside Amara. Sweetheart, what's your name? Amara Johnson. Her voice was barely audible. I have sickle cell disease. We're going to Atlanta Children's Hospital. Can I see your medical alert bracelet? Carol's tone was gentle. Amara held out her wrist. Carol examined it closely, noting the medical information, emergency contacts, and something else, an engraved inscription that made her pause. Property of Johnson Medical Trust, serial number 0001. Carol stood slowly, her expression shifting from concern to alarm. She pulled out her phone and snapped photos of the bracelet, the torn boarding pass pieces, and Kendrick's driver's license. Ma'am. I really think Brenda started. But Carol cut her off with a raised hand. Flight departure 8 minutes remaining. Kendrick had been waiting for someone to actually look at the facts rather than his appearance. His voice remained quiet but firm. My daughter's medical records are in my bag. I have documentation from Atlanta Children's Hospital confirming her appointment with Dr. Sarah Patterson at 2 p.m. I have prescriptions for her emergency medications. I have the credit card statement showing the ticket purchase. And I have the patience of a father who watched his sick child get terrorized. Carol opened Kendrick's medical bag, carefully reviewing the documents. Everything was legitimate, professionally organized, and clearly belonging to a family dealing with serious medical challenges. Why first class? Patricia challenged. Seems extravagant. Medical necessity. Carol answered before Kendrick could. Sickle cell patients need space to move, access to oxygen if needed, and reduced stress during flights. First class provides better accommodation for managing chronic illness during travel. It's actually recommended protocol. Brenda's face flushed red. Well, I couldn't have known that. You could have asked. Carol's voice was ice cold. You could have examined their documents. You could have shown basic human compassion. Instead, you humiliated a sick child and her father in front of hundreds of people. Flight departure 6 minutes remaining. Carol turned to Jenny, still recording. Ma'am, I apologize for witnessing this horrific display. American Airlines does not tolerate discrimination of any kind. These employees will face immediate consequences. Jenny's viewer count had reached 20,000. The airline stock price was already dropping as Twitter exploded with the hashtag #BoycottAmerican. Carol's radio crackled to life. Carol, this is Operations Manager Robert Mitchell. I need you to hold that flight. What's happening at B7? Sir, we have a situation. 2 employees engaged in discriminatory behavior against a first-class passenger and his medically fragile daughter. How bad? Mitchell's voice was tense. 20,000 people are watching it live, sir. The footage includes destruction of valid boarding passes, racial profiling, and mocking a child with sickle cell disease. There was a long pause. Then Mitchell's voice came back, filled with anger and determination. I'm on my way. Nobody moves until I get there. Flight departure 4 minutes remaining. But the flight wasn't going anywhere. The pilot, Captain Thomas Hayes, had been monitoring the situation from his cockpit. He'd overheard the gate commotion through his communication system and checked Jenny's viral live stream. What he saw made him physically ill. As a 25-year veteran pilot and father of 3, he knew exactly what to do. This is Captain Hayes. I'm invoking emergency authority under FAA Regulation 121.533. This aircraft is not departing until this situation is resolved. The first officer looked confused. Sir, we're cleared for departure. We'll miss our slot. We'll miss a lot more than that if we take off with this mess unresolved. Hayes picked up the PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a brief delay due to a serious passenger safety concern. We'll provide updates shortly. Thank you for your patience. Flight departure original time passed. The plane sat motionless at the gate. Inside the aircraft, first-class passengers began demanding answers. A wealthy businessman in seat 1 Ampere was particularly vocal. This is unacceptable. I have a connection to make. Flight attendant Linda Chen, who'd been watching the gate drama through the window, turned to face the cabin. Sir, with all due respect, a child was just racially profiled and prevented from boarding while having a medical emergency. Your connection can wait. The businessman started to argue, then saw the look in Linda's eyes and the nods of agreement from other passengers. He sat down. On the ground, Operations Manager Robert Mitchell arrived at a full sprint, his expensive shoes clicking against the terminal floor. He was breathing hard, his face flushed, his carefully styled hair disheveled. Mitchell was known throughout American Airlines as a no-nonsense executive who'd climbed from baggage handler to operations manager through sheer determination and an absolute commitment to excellence. He took one look at the scene. Brenda and Patricia standing defensively, Kendrick holding his trembling daughter, Jenny's phone capturing everything, and the crowd of angry passengers. Then he saw Amara's medical bracelet, and everything clicked into place. Oh God, he whispered. Dr. Johnson, I am so deeply sorry. Mitchell's voice carried across the gate area. This is unconscionable. Kendrick's expression didn't change. Your employees destroyed my daughter's boarding pass, called us liars and scammers, mocked her illness, and traumatized her while she was having a medical episode. All because of how we look. I take full responsibility, Mitchell said immediately. And I give you my word that there will be consequences. Consequences? A middle-aged black man pushed forward from the crowd. That child is struggling to breathe. Your people did that. They created a medical crisis through their racism. Robert Mitchell was known for making tough decisions quickly. He turned to Patricia and Brenda. You're both suspended effective immediately. Surrender your badges and credentials. Security will escort you from the premises. But I was just Brenda started. You terrorized a sick child. Mitchell's voice cut like glass. In all my years in aviation, I've never seen such blatant discrimination. You're done here. Flight status grounded. Mitchell pulled out his phone and made 3 calls in rapid succession. First to American Airlines CEO David Harrison. Sir, we have a major incident at LAX. Racial discrimination against a first-class passenger caught on live stream. 25,000 viewers and climbing. Second to the company's PR crisis team. Activate Level 1 response protocols. We have a discrimination incident gone viral. Prepare statement. Third to American Airlines Legal Department. We need immediate damage control at LAX Gate B7. Potential civil rights lawsuit. Massive PR exposure. Then he turned back to Kendrick and Amara. Dr. Johnson, we need to get your daughter to Atlanta immediately. I'm personally arranging alternative transportation. That won't be necessary. A new voice cut through the tension. Marcus Thompson, Kendrick's attorney, and old friend from medical school, had arrived. He'd been following Jenny's live stream from his car, and drove straight to the airport. Marcus was a civil rights lawyer with a reputation for devastating cross-examinations and settlements that changed corporate policies. He carried a leather briefcase and wore an expression that made corporate lawyers nervous. Dr. Johnson, I strongly advise you not to accept anything from American Airlines without legal consultation. Marcus, Kendrick said quietly, this is about getting Amara to her appointment. It's also about justice. Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out a tablet, showing Jenny's live stream. 28,000 viewers. The hashtag has been trending worldwide for the last 15 minutes. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News have already requested interviews. This isn't just about one flight anymore. Mitchell's phone was exploding with calls. He could see the airline's stock price dropping in real time. CEO Harrison was probably already in an emergency board meeting. The PR nightmare was just beginning. Dr. Johnson, Marcus continued, my firm represents victims of corporate discrimination. What happened here was not an isolated incident. It was systemic racism that endangered your daughter's life. American Airlines needs to answer for that. Flight status still grounded. Amara tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, I just want to see Dr. Patterson. I know, Princess. Kendrick's voice was gentle, but his eyes never left Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, you say you're sorry. You suspended 2 employees. But what about the culture that made them feel comfortable destroying a child's ticket in front of hundreds of people? What about the assumptions that made them see criminals instead of passengers? What about the system that valued their prejudice over my daughter's health? Those are exactly the questions we need to answer, Mitchell said. And I commit to you that we will. Talk is cheap. Marcus pulled out a document from his briefcase. I've already drafted a preliminary complaint. Racial discrimination, emotional distress, medical endangerment, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're prepared to file within the hour. Mr. Thompson, I understand your position, Mitchell said, his voice steady despite the pressure. But I'm asking for 24 hours to demonstrate American Airlines' commitment to making this right. Not just words. Actions. What kind of actions? Kendrick asked. Mitchell took a deep breath. This was the moment where he either saved the airline's reputation or watched it burn. Complete investigation with findings made public. Mandatory bias training for all employees. Not just customer-facing staff. Creation of a passenger bill of rights with real enforcement mechanisms. Establishment of an independent oversight committee with civil rights organizations. Personal compensation to your family. But most importantly, Dr. Johnson, I want you to help us rebuild American Airlines into what it should have been all along. Flight status evaluation pending. The crowd had grown silent, watching this negotiation unfold. Jenny's live stream was now at 35,000 viewers. Other passengers were recording from multiple angles. This moment would be studied in business schools and civil rights seminars for years to come. Kendrick looked at his daughter, whose breathing was slowly stabilizing now that the immediate stress was reducing. He thought about all the other black families who'd faced similar discrimination without cameras recording or operations managers apologizing. He thought about the children with chronic illnesses who were dismissed as faking. He thought about the power he held as a major shareholder that most victims would never have. 24 hours, he said finally. But not just promises. I want a written commitment with specific timelines and measurable outcomes. If American Airlines is serious about change, prove it. You'll have it, Mitchell promised. Marcus wasn't satisfied. And what about immediate transportation to Atlanta? My client's daughter has a critical medical appointment. Mitchell pulled out his phone. I'm authorizing company jet. We have a medical configured G550 at the executive terminal. Full medical staff, pediatric specialist, whatever Dr. Johnson needs. That's a several $100,000 gesture, Marcus noted. It's not nearly enough, Mitchell admitted, but it's a start. Flight status redirected to private terminal. Mitchell personally escorted Kendrick and Amara through the terminal, past security without the usual screening hassles, and into a luxury vehicle that would take them to the executive aviation area. Jenny and Marcus followed, documenting everything. As they walked, Mitchell made continuous phone calls. Get Dr. Sarah Patterson on the line. I need confirmation of Amara's appointment and her current medical status. Activate our executive medical flight crew. I want our best pediatric flight nurse. Call Atlanta Children's Hospital. Full VIP arrival protocol. Notify our Atlanta operations. I want red carpet treatment when they land. Clear the G550 for immediate departure. File emergency medical flight plan. The terminal blurred past as they moved quickly. Other passengers watched, some recognizing Kendrick from Jenny's viral stream. A few applauded as they passed. Private aviation terminal arrival. The Gulfstream G550 sat gleaming on the tarmac, stairs down, crew standing at attention. It was the kind of aircraft that usually carried senators, celebrities, and executives, not an 8-year-old girl in a purple backpack and her casually dressed father. Captain Jennifer Walsh stood at the bottom of the stairs, her uniform crisp, her expression professional but warm. Dr. Johnson, Miss Amara, welcome aboard. I'm Captain Walsh, and this is my crew. We're honored to fly you to Atlanta. The crew included First Officer David Park, Flight Attendant and Registered Nurse Rachel Foster, and Pediatric Specialist Dr. Lisa Chen, who'd been pulled from her shift at UCLA Medical Center, and rushed to the airport. Dr. Chen knelt to Amara's level. Hi, sweetheart. I'm Dr. Chen. I'm a kid doctor, just like Dr. Patterson. Can I check how you're feeling? Amara nodded, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. Dr. Chen performed a quick, but thorough assessment. Slight tachycardia, still mildly elevated respiratory rate, but no acute crisis. The stress had pushed her to the edge, but not over. You're a tough cookie, Dr. Chen smiled. Let's get you comfortable on the plane, and we'll monitor you the whole way. Flight status: boarding luxury medical transport. The Gulfstream's interior looked more like a medical suite than an aircraft. There were reclining medical chairs, oxygen equipment, emergency medications, and even a small treatment area. But it was also comfortable, with leather seats, entertainment systems, and snacks clearly selected for a child. Rachel Foster showed Amara the kids' area. We have movies, games, coloring books, and I heard someone really likes purple, so everything here is purple-themed. Amara's eyes widened. This is for me? All for you, sweetheart. Rachel's voice was gentle. You've had a really tough day, and we want to make the rest of it better. Mitchell stood at the aircraft door with Marcus and Jenny, who was still streaming. Dr. Johnson, you'll have my written commitment delivered to your attorney before you land. Everything we discussed, plus additional measures, I'm going to recommend to our board. Kendrick paused at the stairs. Mr. Mitchell, words are easy. Actions matter. But I'm willing to give you 24 hours to show me that American Airlines can be better. Thank you, Mitchell said quietly. And Dr. Johnson? Kendrick turned back. I grew up poor in South Central Los Angeles. I worked baggage claim for 6 years before getting into management. I've faced discrimination in this industry. What happened today is everything I've spent my career trying to prevent. I failed your daughter, but I won't fail the next child. Kendrick studied Mitchell's face, seeing genuine remorse and determination. Time will tell, Mr. Mitchell. Time will tell. Flight status: departing for Atlanta. The Gulfstream's engines hummed to life, a sound of power and precision. Amara was settled in a medical recliner, oxygen monitor attached, Dr. Chen sitting nearby. Kendrick sat beside his daughter, still processing the events of the past hour. Princess, how are you feeling? Better, Daddy. She smiled weakly. But I'm still sad about what those people said. I know. Kendrick stroked her hair. Sometimes people make terrible mistakes because they judge others by how they look instead of who they are. Captain Walsh's voice came over the intercom. Dr. Johnson, we're cleared for immediate takeoff. Flight time to Atlanta approximately 3 hours and 45 minutes. Weather is clear, and we'll have a smooth flight. Sit back, relax, and let us take care of everything. The aircraft began to move, smooth and quiet compared to commercial jets. Through the window, Kendrick could see Mitchell still standing on the tarmac, phone pressed to his ear, probably dealing with the crisis that was still exploding across social media. Flight status: airborne. As the G550 climbed into the California sky, Rachel brought Amara a warm blanket and a stuffed purple bear. This is from Captain Walsh's daughter. She wanted you to have a friend for the flight. Amara hugged the bear tight. Can you tell her thank you? I will, Rachel promised. And Amara? What you did today was incredibly brave. Standing up against unfairness even when you were scared and sick. That's real courage. I didn't do anything, Amara said softly. I just wanted to get on the plane. Sometimes the bravest thing is just being yourself, Rachel replied. 3 hours into the flight, Amara was sleeping peacefully, her oxygen levels normal, her breathing steady. Dr. Chen gave Kendrick a reassuring nod. She's stable. The crisis was averted. Thank you for being here, Kendrick said. Of course, Dr. Chen replied. Though I have to say, this is the most unusual patient transport I've ever done. Usually, we don't have viral incidents triggering medical jet deployments. Kendrick pulled out his phone. Jenny's live stream had ended, but the video had been captured and reshared across every social media platform. The hashtag Amara's flight was trending worldwide. Major news outlets were covering it. Civil rights organizations were issuing statements. American Airlines stock had dropped 3.2%. And his phone had 127 missed calls. Daddy, Amara stirred awake. Are we almost there? Almost, princess. Dr. Patterson is waiting for you. Will the mean people be there too? No, sweetheart. Just doctors who care about making you feel better. Amara thought about this. Daddy, why were they so mean to us? It's complicated, princess. Kendrick struggled with how to explain systemic racism to an 8-year-old. Some people make wrong assumptions about others based on skin color. They thought because we're black, and because I don't dress fancy, we must be lying or stealing. That's not fair. No, it's not. But remember what I always tell you about responding to unfairness. Don't get angry, get smart. Exactly. We could have yelled and fought, but instead, we stayed calm and let their mistakes speak for themselves. Now, millions of people know what happened, and things are going to change. Flight status descending into Atlanta. Atlanta approach, this is November 8:47. Charlie, Executive Medical Transport, requesting priority landing. Captain Walsh radioed. We have a pediatric sickle cell patient requiring immediate hospital transport. Roger 847 Charlie, you're cleared for straight in approach runway, 27 right. Medical team is standing by. The landing was smooth, professional, exactly what you'd expect from a pilot with Walsh's experience. As they taxied, Kendrick could see the reception committee. Atlanta Children's Hospital had sent an ambulance, not for emergency transport but for comfort and publicity. Hospital PR team recognized a moment when they saw one. Dr. Sarah Patterson, a renowned pediatric hematologist, was there personally. And so were news crews, alerted by the hospital's communications team that the girl from the viral video was arriving. Flight status arrived, media circus pending. Mitchell had called ahead, turning what could have been a nightmare into a PR opportunity for doing the right thing. Captain Walsh taxied directly to the private terminal where the hospital team waited. Dr. Patterson, a warm middle-aged black woman with silver streaks in her hair, stood at the bottom of the stairs as they opened. Amara Johnson? Dr. Patterson smiled. I've been waiting to meet you. You're famous, you know. Amara looked uncertain. Is that good? It means a lot of people care about you and want to make sure kids like you are treated fairly. That's definitely good. Dr. Patterson held out her hand. Shall we go take a look at how you're doing? Hospital arrival, transformation beginning. The ambulance ride was more like a celebration. Paramedics treated Amara like royalty, explaining everything, answering her questions, and making her laugh. At the hospital, staff lined the hallways to welcome her. Not as spectacle, but as inspiration. Children's hospitals know something most people don't. Sometimes the smallest patients teach the biggest lessons. In Dr. Patterson's private examination room, away from cameras and chaos, Kendrick finally breathed. We made it, princess. We did, Amara smiled. And Daddy? I think those people are going to get in big trouble. Probably. But more importantly, I think things are going to get better for other kids. That's what matters. Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, the transformation was already beginning. Robert Mitchell had assembled an emergency task force. American Airlines CEO David Harrison joined via video conference, his face grave. Walk me through everything, Harrison demanded. Mitchell presented the facts without sugar-coating. Racial profiling, destruction of valid documents, medical endangerment, 50,000 plus live stream viewers, trending worldwide, stock drop, and a major shareholder's daughter traumatized. Also, Harrison, there's something else you need to know. Mitchell pulled up Kendrick's shareholder information. Dr. Kendrick Johnson owns 12% of American Airlines stock. He's not just a passenger. He's effectively a board member. The room went silent. Harrison's face cycled through shock, horror, and determination. 12%? Why wasn't I informed? The shares are held through a family trust. Johnson Medical Research Foundation. He's been a silent investor for 8 years. Silent until now, Harrison said grimly. Gentlemen, we're not just facing a PR crisis. We're facing an existential moment. Do we become the airline that changed, or the airline that exemplified everything wrong with corporate America? Mitchell pulled up Jenny's video again, forcing the executives to watch. Brenda tearing the boarding pass. Patricia's theatrical document examination. Amara's labored breathing. Kendrick's dignified restraint. And the crowd's growing outrage. This is who we've become, Mitchell said quietly. The question is, who are we going to be? Crisis Response Phase 1, Immediate Actions. Harrison made the first decision. Patricia Wilson and Brenda Matthews are terminated immediately, not suspended. Terminated. Their personnel files will be reviewed for past complaints. If there's a pattern, we investigate why it wasn't addressed. Second, every employee in customer-facing roles undergoes immediate bias training. Not optional, mandatory. No exceptions from baggage claim to executive management. Third, we establish an independent passenger rights commission. Real authority, real oversight, real consequences for violations. Fourth, we create a medical accommodation protocol developed with input from disability rights advocates and medical professionals. Fifth, we publicly commit to specific measurable changes with quarterly reporting. Transparency, not just promises. But Harrison wasn't finished. Sixth, we establish a significant scholarship fund for underrepresented students pursuing aviation careers. We can't change our industry demographics overnight, but we start now. Seventh, Dr. Johnson joins our board of directors if he's willing. His perspective is exactly what we've been missing. Mitchell added one more item. Eighth, we partner with civil rights organizations to audit our entire operation. Not just a surface review. Deep examination of policies, practices, and culture. If there are other problems, we find them and fix them. The executives around the table nodded. This wasn't just damage control. This was transformation. Phase 2. Dr. Johnson negotiations. 24 hours after the incident, Marcus Thompson arrived at American Airlines headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. He carried a briefcase full of documentation and a settlement demand that would make corporate lawyers nervous. Robert Mitchell met him personally, along with Harrison and the airline's top legal team. Mr. Thompson, welcome. Mitchell's tone was respectful, but guarded. Mr. Mitchell, CEO Harrison. Marcus shook hands professionally. Let's talk about how American Airlines plans to make this right. We've prepared a comprehensive proposal, Harrison began, sliding a thick document across the conference table. But before we discuss terms, I want to say something personal. He paused, making eye contact with Marcus. What happened to Dr. Johnson and his daughter was unconscionable. No amount of money or policy changes can undo the trauma they experienced. But we're committed to ensuring it never happens again, not just at American, but industry-wide. Marcus opened the proposal document, scanning key points. $2.5 million direct compensation to Dr. Johnson and Amara, including medical expenses, emotional distress, and punitive damages. Lifetime platinum executive status for the Johnson family. Establishment of the Amara Johnson Dignity and Travel Fund with $10 million initial funding. Board position for Dr. Johnson with full voting rights. Complete overhaul of employee training with quarterly audits. Partnership with NAACP, Anti-Defamation League, and disability rights advocates. Implementation of real-time bias reporting system. Public quarterly reports on discrimination complaints and resolutions. This is comprehensive, Marcus admitted. But I have questions about enforcement. What happens when the news cycle moves on and everyone forgets? That's why everything is written into corporate bylaws with independent oversight. Harrison pushed forward another document. These aren't voluntary policies we can quietly abandon. They're structural changes that require board votes to modify. Marcus read carefully. The legal language was solid, clearly drafted by attorneys who understood civil rights law and wanted to create real accountability. I'll need to review this with Dr. Johnson, but this appears serious. It is serious, Mitchell said. Because 24 hours ago, I watched a child suffer, and it happened on my watch. That doesn't happen again. Not ever. Phase 3, Public Announcement. American Airlines called a press conference, something they rarely did for operational issues. The room was packed with journalists, civil rights advocates, and social media personalities, including Jenny Rodriguez, who'd become an accidental hero for recording the incident. CEO Harrison stepped to the podium, Mitchell at his side. 24 hours ago, one of our employees committed an act of discrimination against an 8-year-old girl and her father. This incident was captured on video and rightfully sparked outrage across the country and around the world. He paused, making eye contact with the cameras. I want to be absolutely clear, what happened was wrong. It was racist. It endangered a child's health. And it revealed failures in our training, our culture, and our oversight. Harrison detailed the 8-point plan, not reading from notes, but speaking with genuine passion. This wasn't a corporate communications team's carefully crafted message. This was a CEO who'd spent 24 hours soul-searching. But talk is cheap. Harrison continued. Actions matter. So here's what's already happened in the last 24 hours. Patricia Wilson and Brenda Matthews have been terminated. Their personnel files revealed previous complaints that were inadequately addressed. We failed to hold them accountable, and that changes now. We've begun mandatory bias training for all 130,000 American Airlines employees. Not just watching a video, real training with accountability. We've established the Amara Johnson Dignity and Travel Fund, with $10 million in initial funding. This independent organization will investigate discrimination complaints across all airlines and advocate for systemic change. Dr. Kendrick Johnson has agreed to join our board of directors, bringing crucial perspective we've been missing. We've partnered with civil rights organizations to audit every aspect of our operations. When they find problems, and they will, we'll fix them publicly and transparently. The room erupted with questions. CEO Harrison, is this about avoiding a lawsuit? One reporter shouted. Honestly? Yes, partly. Harrison's candor surprised everyone. Dr. Johnson has every right to sue us for millions, possibly tens of millions. But it's also about being the airline we claim to be. We say everyone is welcome here, but our actions prove otherwise. That ends now. Jenny Rodriguez stood. My video has 5 million views now. People want to know if this is real change or just PR. How do we know you'll keep these promises? You hold us accountable, Harrison replied. We're publishing quarterly reports on every discrimination complaint, our response, and outcomes. If we're lying or backsliding, call us out. We're putting our reputation on the line. A civil rights attorney in the back row raised her hand. What about other airlines? Will they follow your lead? That's our hope. Mitchell stepped to the microphone. We're sharing our bias detection technology and training programs with the entire industry. This isn't about competitive advantage. It's about human dignity. 1 month later, Dr. Johnson board meeting. The American Airlines boardroom was impressive, all glass and steel overlooking the Dallas-Fort Worth skyline. Kendrick sat at the massive conference table, the only black face among 12 board members. But his 12% shareholding meant they had to listen. Quarterly discrimination reports, Kendrick began without preamble. I've reviewed the numbers, 47 incidents reported through our new system. That's 47 too many. Mitchell, now promoted to Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, presented detailed analysis. Each case including passenger complaints, staff responses, investigation findings, and disciplinary actions. Some were legitimate misunderstandings. Cultural differences, language barriers, genuine confusion. We provided additional training and communication tools. But 8 incidents were clear discrimination. Racial profiling, disability mockery, religious intolerance. What happened to those employees? One board member asked. Terminated, Mitchell replied without hesitation. We also reviewed their supervisors for failure to identify problematic behaviors earlier. This is expensive, the CFO noted. We're talking about training costs, technology development, legal settlements, and lost productivity during investigations. It's also necessary, Kendrick said firmly. Because the alternative is more Amaras. More children traumatized. More families humiliated. More viral videos destroying our brand. And I'll tell you something else. His voice carried quiet authority. Every time we handle discrimination properly, we gain customer loyalty. Our passenger surveys show a 23% increase in trust among minority travelers. That translates to revenue. So yes, this costs money up front. But it earns respect and market share long-term. The numbers backed him up. Despite initial stock drops, American Airlines had recovered and was outperforming competitors. Turns out, treating people with dignity is good business. But Kendrick wasn't satisfied with just American Airlines. "I want to propose industry-wide standards," he said. "A coalition of airlines, civil rights organizations, and disability advocates creating common protocols for discrimination prevention and response." "You're talking about working with competitors," the chief legal officer said. "I'm talking about leadership," Kendrick countered. American Airlines can either be the company that changed after getting caught, or the company that transformed an industry. Which sounds better? 3 months later, congressional testimony. The Senate Commerce Committee had called hearings on discrimination in air travel. Kendrick testified alongside civil rights leaders, disability advocates, and airline executives. Senator Williams, committee chairwoman, and a formidable presence, addressed the panel. "Dr. Johnson, you've become an unexpected advocate for airline passengers' rights. Tell us what happened to your daughter." Kendrick described the incident in careful detail. Not emotional, just factual. The torn boarding pass, the accusations, the medical crisis, and the viral video that changed everything. "What struck me wasn't just the overt discrimination," Kendrick concluded. "It was the system that enabled it. 2 employees felt comfortable terrorizing a child in front of hundreds of people. That doesn't happen in a healthy culture." Senator Baker, known for his skepticism of corporate promises, leaned forward. "Mr. Johnson, sorry, Dr. Johnson, you're now on American Airlines board. Aren't you conflicted about criticizing your own company?" "I'm not criticizing, Senator. I'm reporting. There's a difference. American Airlines had problems, acknowledged them, and is fixing them. But they're not alone. Every airline needs to examine their training, their culture, and their accountability." "Can government mandate culture change?" Senator Williams asked. "No," Kendrick admitted. "But government can mandate transparency, reporting, and consequences. You can require airlines to publish discrimination complaints and resolutions. You can demand independent oversight. You can make it expensive to ignore problems." Mitchell testified next, presenting American Airlines' transformation blueprint. "We've created a model that works," he told the committee. "Real-time reporting systems. Mandatory bias training with accountability, independent oversight, and public transparency. We're offering this to every airline free of charge." "Why would you share competitive advantages?" Senator Baker challenged. "Because some things transcend competition," Mitchell replied. "Human dignity isn't a business strategy. It's a moral imperative." The testimony lasted 6 hours, covered by every major news outlet. By the end, even skeptical senators were nodding. Legislation began moving through committees. The Airline Passenger Dignity Act would require comprehensive discrimination prevention and reporting across the industry. 6 months later, Amara's follow-up. Dr. Patterson's examination room had become familiar over months of treatment. Amara's sickle cell anemia was well managed, her crises less frequent, and her overall health improving. "How's my favorite patient?" Dr. Patterson smiled as Amara hopped onto the examination table. "I'm good, Dr. Patterson. And guess what? I got invited to speak at my school about civil rights." "Amara, that's wonderful. You're quite the activist now." "I just tell my story," Amara said simply. "About how mean people can change things even when they don't mean to." Dr. Patterson listened to Amara's heart and lungs, checked her oxygen levels, and reviewed her blood work. "Everything looks great, sweetheart. You're staying healthy." "Because flying doesn't scare me anymore," Amara explained. "We've flown lots of times, and everyone's always really nice now. Daddy says it's because they know people are watching." "Your daddy's a smart man," Dr. Patterson agreed. After the appointment, Kendrick and Amara walked through the hospital corridors. Other families recognized them, some nodding respect. Others approaching to share their own discrimination stories. It's a lot of responsibility, Kendrick thought, being a symbol. Outside, Marcus waited with news. "The settlement is finalized. $2 million total, including medical trust fund for Amara. Plus, the Dignity Fund has processed 200 discrimination complaints across 8 airlines. That's 200 families who didn't have to fight alone. More importantly, Amara's treatment is fully funded through adulthood. Nothing's going to stop her from living a full life." Kendrick shook his friend's hand. "Thank you, Marcus. For everything. I just filed the papers. You did the real work." 1 year later, transformation complete. The anniversary of the incident arrived with little fanfare. Jenny Rodriguez did a follow-up story, interviewing Kendrick and Amara at their home. "How has life changed?" Jenny asked, camera rolling. "We're more careful now," Amara said seriously. "Daddy says visibility means responsibility. We have to use our voice to help others." Kendrick added context. The Johnson Medical Trust launched a program providing free air transportation for chronically ill children needing specialized care. "We've flown 89 families so far. That's 89 kids who got treatment because of what happened to Amara." "What about American Airlines?" Jenny asked. "They kept their promises," Kendrick admitted. Quarterly reports show declining discrimination complaints and improved response times. Training is ongoing. Culture is shifting. It's not perfect, but it's better. Jenny's final question was for Amara. "If you could talk to the people who were mean to you, what would you say?" Amara thought carefully. "I'd say thank you." "Thank you?" Jenny was surprised. "Because they showed everyone what needs to change. If they hadn't been so mean, nothing would be different. Sometimes bad people do good things by accident." The video went viral again, Amara's wisdom touching millions. Her words trended across social media. Sometimes bad people do good things by accident. Final board meeting, Dr. Johnson present. Kendrick had attended a dozen board meetings now, no longer the outsider, but an integral voice in American Airlines' strategic direction. Today's agenda included reviewing Year 1 results of the Discrimination Prevention Program. Mitchell presented impressive data. 89% reduction in validated discrimination complaints, 23% increase in minority passenger satisfaction, 31% increase in disabled passenger bookings, positive correlation between inclusion metrics and profitability. But then he showed something unexpected. A video montage of passengers thanking airline employees for exceptional service. A Muslim woman whose prayer needs were accommodated. A blind man whose guide dog was welcomed without question. A transgender passenger whose pronouns were respected. An elderly woman whose wheelchair assistance went beyond basic requirements. "This is what we're building," Mitchell said. "Not just preventing discrimination, but creating genuine inclusion." Tears formed in Kendrick's eyes. This was what he'd fought for, not revenge, but transformation. CEO Harrison concluded the meeting with an announcement. "The board has voted to make Dr. Johnson's position permanent and expand his role. We're creating a new Chief Equality Officer position reporting directly to me." "Dr. Johnson, would you consider this role?" "It would mean stepping away from medical practice," Kendrick said slowly. "Partly. You could maintain limited clinical work while leading our inclusion efforts full-time. This is how we make change permanent, not just policies, but dedicated leadership." Kendrick looked at the data, the testimonials, the measurable impact of one terrible incident turned into systemic transformation. "I'll do it," he said. "But I have conditions." "Name them," Harrison replied. "First, this role has full authority to override other executives if discrimination is involved. No political games, no protecting bad employees. Second, we establish a passenger advisory council with real power, not just ceremonial. If our customers say we're failing, we listen. Third, we commit to publishing all discrimination data publicly, even when it makes us look bad. Transparency over reputation. Fourth, we expand this program internationally. Discrimination isn't just an American problem." All agreed, Harrison said immediately. The board voted unanimously. "Welcome to your new role, Chief Equality Officer Johnson." Epilogue, 2 years later. Gate B7 at LAX looked the same physically but felt different. New training posters covered the walls, emphasizing dignity and respect. Digital displays promoted the Dignity Fund and passenger rights. Every employee wore a badge with the commitment statement. "Everyone welcome, always respected, no exceptions." A young Mexican family approached the gate, clearly nervous about their first flight. The gate agent, a middle-aged white woman named Sarah, greeted them warmly. "Welcome. First time flying?" The mother nodded, her English hesitant. "We going to visit my sister in Houston. Our son, he has autism. We worried about noise, people staring." Sarah immediately pulled out a tablet. "We have a sensory accommodation program. Let me show you resources. Noise-canceling headphones, priority boarding so you avoid crowds, and I'll brief the flight crew about your son's needs." Tears formed in the mother's eyes. "You help us?" "Of course. Everyone deserves to fly comfortably. That's not just policy, it's our promise." In the background, a digital display showed Amara's face and her quote. "Sometimes bad people do good things by accident. But what happened at this gate wasn't an accident anymore. It was intentional, systematic, structural change built from the ashes of one terrible day. Kendrick Johnson walked through the same terminal with Amara, now 10 years old and healthy. They were heading to another speaking engagement, this time at an international aviation conference in Paris. "Daddy, do you ever think about that day?" Amara asked. "Every day, princess. But you know what I think about more?" "What?" "All the kids who didn't have to go through what you did because of what you went through." "That makes me feel better," Amara smiled. At Gate B7, Sarah's family was boarding peacefully, their son wearing noise-canceling headphones and clutching a sensory toy provided by the airline. The flight attendants greeted them with trained awareness and genuine kindness. In his executive office in Dallas-Fort Worth, Mitchell reviewed quarterly reports. Discrimination complaints down 94% from 2 years ago. Minority passenger bookings up 47%. Disabled passenger satisfaction at record highs. But the number he was proudest of was this: 412 airline employees across 6 companies had completed bias training developed by American Airlines and offered freely to the industry. Change was spreading. Jenny Rodriguez, now a respected civil rights journalist with a syndicated column, wrote the 2-year anniversary piece. 2 years ago, a flight attendant tore up a boarding pass and traumatized a child. It should have been just another discrimination story, unfortunately common, quickly forgotten. But it wasn't. Because an 8-year-old girl and her father turned humiliation into transformation, rage into strategy, and pain into purpose. The airline industry will never be perfect. Discrimination still happens. But because of what happened at Gate B7, it happens less often and with more consequences. That's not victory. Victory would be discrimination never happening. But it's progress, and progress matters. On their flight to Paris, Amara looked out the window at the clouds below. She was healthy, confident, and armed with the knowledge that her voice mattered. "Daddy," she said, "when I grow up, I want to run an airline." "You could do that," Kendrick smiled. "You'd be great at it, but maybe I'll be a doctor like you first." "You can be anything you want, princess." The world learned that when they tried to stop you from getting on a plane. Amara settled back in her seat, premium economy because despite everything, Kendrick believed in modest living. But she traveled with the dignity every person deserves, and the knowledge that sometimes, the smallest voices create the biggest changes. Gate B7 was just a gate again, but it would forever be remembered as the place where quiet dignity defeated loud discrimination. Where a father's restraint accomplished more than rage. Where a child's suffering became a catalyst for industry-wide transformation. And where America was reminded that justice doesn't require power, but power without justice is tyranny. The plane carrying Kendrick and Amara lifted into the sky, heading east toward new adventures. Behind them, at gates across America, passengers of every race, ability, and background were boarding planes with a little more dignity and a little less fear. Because one girl wouldn't stay quiet about being treated unfairly. Because one father used his power for justice instead of revenge. Because one video showed the world what discrimination looks like. And because one company decided changing was better than defending the indefensible. Final statistics scroll. Amara Johnson Dignity and Travel Fund, 847 discrimination cases processed, 12 airlines participating, industry-wide policy changes implemented. American Airlines discrimination complaints, 94% reduction in 2 years. Pediatric Medical Accommodation Act, passed with bipartisan support, requiring training for all transportation employees. Free medical flight program, 312 families transported, $4.7 million in donated services. Scholarship fund, 89 minority students enrolled in aviation programs, representing the future of an industry finally facing its past. The numbers tell a story, but statistics never capture the full picture. They don't show the families who flew without fear. The employees who learned to see people instead of stereotypes. The children who knew their dignity mattered. Sometimes change begins with injustice, but transformation requires people willing to turn pain into purpose, rage into strategy, and trauma into triumph. Amara Johnson was 8 years old when a flight attendant tried to stop her from flying. She's 10 now, and she's still flying. Higher and further than anyone tried to limit her. And the skies are changing because she refused to be grounded. The end. Or perhaps, the beginning. Because stories like this don't really end. They echo forward, inspiring the next person to speak up, the next company to change, the next child to believe their voice matters. At Gate B7, another family is boarding. Different faces, same dignity. And somewhere above the clouds, a little girl who once had her boarding pass torn up is flying first class, not because of her father's shares, but because she earned the respect of an industry that learned the hard way that everyone deserves to fly. What happened next for Brenda Matthews and Patricia Wilson? After their termination, both women faced a harsh reality check. Their names were forever associated with one of aviation's most viral discrimination incidents. Brenda initially maintained she'd done nothing wrong, giving interviews defending her actions. But as the legal, social, and professional consequences mounted, something shifted. Her adult children stopped speaking to her. Friends distanced themselves. Her reputation in the aviation community was destroyed. About 6 months after the incident, Brenda reached out to Kendrick through Marcus Thompson. She wanted to apologize, not publicly for show, but privately, one person to another. Kendrick agreed to meet, bringing Amara if she wanted to come. She did. The meeting took place in a conference room at Marcus's law office. Brenda arrived looking diminished, her confidence shattered, her certainty replaced with shame. "Amara, Dr. Johnson," Brenda's voice shook. "I am so deeply sorry for what I did to you. There's no excuse. I let prejudice and assumptions guide my actions. I hurt you both terribly." Amara looked at her father, then at Brenda. "Why did you think we were lying?" "I don't know." Brenda's honesty was painful. "I saw your skin color, your casual clothes, and I made assumptions. I didn't see a father and daughter. I saw stereotypes. And I was wrong. Wrong doesn't cover it." "My daughter could have died," Kendrick said quietly. "The apology doesn't undo the trauma." "I know," Brenda whispered. "I've been in therapy, trying to understand how I became someone who would hurt a child. What I'm learning is that bias isn't always obvious. I didn't think I was racist, but my actions proved I was." "What are you going to do with that knowledge?" Kendrick asked. Brenda pulled out a folder. "I've been working with a civil rights education organization, speaking at their workshops about my experience. Not as a victim, as a cautionary tale. Here's what happens when you don't examine your biases." Amara spoke up. "Are you sorry because you got in trouble or because you hurt me?" "Both," Brenda admitted. "And I'm ashamed that getting in trouble was part of what made me really look at myself. That should have happened before." "Thank you for being honest," Amara said with wisdom beyond her years. "I forgive you, but I won't forget. I hope you help other people not make your mistakes." The meeting ended with no dramatic reconciliation, just a beginning of accountability. Brenda would never work in aviation again, but she could educate others about the costs of discrimination. Patricia Wilson took a different path. She remained bitter, claiming she was just following protocol and had been scapegoated for doing her job. She filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against American Airlines. It was dismissed quickly. The video evidence, witness testimony, and clear violation of company policy made her case impossible to defend. Without the self-reflection Brenda eventually found, Patricia became a cautionary tale of a different kind. Someone who couldn't admit wrong even when confronted with undeniable evidence. She appeared on conservative talk shows complaining about cancel culture and political correctness, never acknowledging that terrorizing a sick child wasn't a political issue, it was a human one. Her media appearances hurt more than helped. Even sympathetic hosts struggled to defend her actions when shown the full video of Amara struggling to breathe while Patricia blocked her from boarding. Eventually, the invitations stopped coming. Patricia faded from public view, bitter and unchanged. The contrast between Brenda and Patricia illustrated something important about accountability. Genuine remorse leads to growth. Defensive denial leads to stagnation. Kendrick didn't celebrate either woman's downfall. There was no satisfaction in watching lives destroyed, even lives that had caused harm. But he understood that consequences mattered, not for revenge, but for deterrence. Other airline employees watching Brenda and Patricia's fates would think twice before letting bias guide their actions. Meanwhile, American Airlines used both women as case studies in their new training program. Not to shame them further, but to show real consequences of real discrimination. Here's what happened. Here's why it was wrong. Here's what it cost everyone involved. The training didn't just say, "Don't discriminate." It showed what discrimination looked like in practice, and why it failed on every level. Morally wrong, legally indefensible, financially disastrous, and personally destructive. 6 months after Brenda's private apology, she sent Amara a letter. Not seeking forgiveness or redemption, but sharing her progress. She'd completed a year of intensive bias training and was volunteering with organizations fighting discrimination. She wasn't trying to repair her reputation, the damage was permanent. She was trying to ensure her mistake educated others. Amara kept the letter. "Sometimes people do change," she told her father. "Not always, and not fast, but sometimes. That's why giving second chances matters, even to people who hurt us." The wisdom of a 10-year-old continued to amaze Kendrick. And that's the final lesson of Gate B7. Transformation isn't just for systems and corporations. It's for individuals willing to confront their worst selves and choose to become better. Brenda Matthews would never fly as a flight attendant again. But she could still fly as a person, grounded in accountability and lifted by the hard work of genuine change. Sometimes redemption isn't about restoration. It's about recognition, owning who you were, accepting the consequences, and becoming someone different going forward. For American Airlines, Gate B7 represented before and after. Before Amara. Before accountability. Before change. And after transformation. After transparency. After justice. The gate itself was eventually renamed the Dignity Gate, with a plaque commemorating the incident and the changes it sparked. Visitors stopped to read the story and reflect on how one terrible day became a catalyst for industry-wide transformation. But Kendrick never wanted Amara to be defined by victimhood. She wasn't the girl who got discriminated against. She was the girl who sparked change, who showed courage, who reminded the world that dignity matters. At 10 years old, she was already a force, speaking at conferences, testifying before legislative bodies, and yes, still just being a kid who loved purple, dinosaurs, and flying. Because that day at Gate B7 tried to stop her from flying, but instead, it taught her that she could soar higher than anyone imagined. And she's still climbing. The final frame. The camera pulls back from Gate B7, now bustling with diverse passengers boarding with dignity and respect. It rises through the terminal, past the Dignity Gate plaque, out through the glass walls, into the sky above Los Angeles. Clouds part to reveal dozens of aircraft crossing the country, each carrying passengers who benefit from changes sparked by one 8-year-old girl who refused to accept injustice. The screen fades to white, then text appears. In memory of every person who faced discrimination and didn't have cameras recording. For every child told they didn't belong. For every family humiliated at gates, counters, and checkpoints. This story is dedicated to the belief that change is possible, justice can prevail, and dignity belongs to everyone. Not because of wealth, status, or power. But because of humanity. Fly with dignity. Travel with respect. Change starts with each of us. The Amara Johnson Foundation continues its work. www.dignityfund.org. Final fade to black. Then one last scene. Amara, now 10, stands at Gate B7 with her father. They're about to board another flight, this time to speak at the United Nations about children's rights. A young gate agent checks their boarding passes with a smile. "Welcome, Dr. Johnson, Miss Johnson. We're honored to have you flying with us today." "Thank you," Amara says brightly. She pauses at the jet bridge entrance, looking back at the gate that changed her life. It's just a gate now. No drama. No discrimination. Just people traveling with dignity. "That's how it should be," Kendrick says, reading his daughter's thoughts. "And it is now. Because of you, Princess." Amara smiles, takes her father's hand, and walks onto the aircraft. Not as a victim, as a victor, as a voice. As a girl who learned that sometimes the worst moments create the best outcomes, if you have the courage to transform pain into purpose. The aircraft door closes. The plane lifts off, and somewhere below, at Gate B7, another family boards peacefully, protected by policies that exist because one father loved his daughter enough to demand better. And one daughter was brave enough to endure the worst, so others wouldn't have to. The end. But really, just the beginning. Because every ending is someone else's beginning. Every story inspires the next voice. Every change creates momentum for the next transformation. Gate B7 was just the start. Where does your story begin? Credits roll. Inspired by true events of discrimination in aviation and the ongoing fight for dignity in travel. This story honors the real families who face bias without viral videos or powerful shareholders. May their voices be heard. May their dignity be recognized. May change continue. Special thanks to civil rights organizations fighting discrimination daily, disability advocates ensuring accommodation for all, families navigating travel with chronic illness, and every person who stands up when others won't. Change happens because people care. Justice prevails when voices unite. Dignity belongs to everyone. No exceptions. Final dedication. To Amara, and every child who deserves to fly without fear. To Kendrick, and every parent fighting for their children's dignity. To Jenny, and every witness who refuses to stay silent. To Mitchell and every executive willing to choose change over comfort. And to everyone who believes that the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, but only when we bend it. Fly with dignity. The screen goes black. The story ends. But the mission continues. How will you respond when you witness injustice? What will you do when discrimination happens in front of you? Who will you be when power destroys innocence? The answers matter. Because Gate B7 wasn't just about one family and one airline. It was about all of us and how we choose to treat each other when nobody's watching, or when everyone is. Make it count. The very final image. Young Amara's face, smiling confidently, wearing her purple backpack, ready for another flight. Text overlay. Sometimes the smallest voices create the biggest changes. Never underestimate the power of speaking up. Fade to black. End credits.